Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Planet X News. This is Scott from the Nibiru channel. Today, I have our physicist with us and also Mr. Chris Potter. And we're going to be discussing a paper that the doctor wrote, and it is referring to geomagnetic storms and the solar wind. If any of you have viewed my current video that was uploaded this morning, we're going to be going into a situation which will begin sometime on the 29th, meaning tomorrow. And this is going to involve the plasma density coming from the sun, this high energy cosmic wave, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be impacting the Earth. And we all know about the current situations we had with the power outages on the East Coast and on the West Coast. There were some outages reported in Canada, Australia, Germany, England, France, Italy, and so on and so on. Now, the doctor is going to be explaining to us her current paper and report, and we're going to be going over a lot of information because, to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, things are just getting very, very weird around the world with the possibilities of this so-called World War III, this Operation Gotham Shield, which has now expanded the cities that they're going to be conducting these drills, and also the U.S. government just doing some very weird and suspicious things. Is this all going to be just one big psyop, a training drill for another event later on? The bottom line is we just don't know. We're trying to investigate something in our skies, in our inner solar system and around our sun, and now we're being faced with another tragic situation. And if this all kicks off, God only knows what will happen. So, good afternoon, Doctor. Good afternoon, Chris. How are you?
Good afternoon, Scott. I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm not doing too bad. Not doing too bad.
Good day, buddy. How are you doing?
As they say over on the East Coast, I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there.
Good.
So, Doctor, you know, there was a lot of questions that have been popping up, and
yes,
I really never knew too much about physics, you know, growing up, or even in my young adult life, or even my older adult life.
Okay.
But I think a lot of people have maybe a little, I don't want to use the word misunderstanding, but maybe a misconception of what physics actually is. So, you know, just to set the record straight for everyone, could you just give us a brief background on physics and physics as you perceive it?
Okay. So physics, what it does is it tries to model the real world, the real universe. Everything we know in physics is a theory. Nothing is proven in physics. We all try to come up with a model. And this model always starts from observation. So you observe something happening, like an apple falling from a tree, and then you come up with an hypothesis, or you deduce, you have some idea what you think is causing this apple to fall. And then you go ahead and you try and test your idea. So you say, well, maybe it's got to do with the wind. So you try to produce wind of different velocities to see if the apple falls in the same way. So this is how you would test an hypothesis. And once you test it and it looks right, you can carry on and say, okay, now I have a theory of why apples fall from a tree. So this is how the whole of physics works. There are theories for different things. Now you can falsify a theory by simply finding one case where the idea doesn't work, you know. In the case of the apple, you you would blow a fast wind and a slow wind, and sometimes the apple falls with the fast wind, and sometimes it falls with the slow wind. So then, and sometimes it doesn't fall at all, even though you blow a fast wind. So then your theory that it's a fast wind that causes apples to fall is falsified. So you cannot use that theory anymore. So this is how physics is supposed to work. It's supposed to be built on observation. So you start at an observation, you make a deduction, and based logic and your understanding of the principles involved. But everything we know and use is all built on theory. So even the ideas we use sometimes to examine things are part of theories. But there are some that have been used for so long that they've been sort of tested to the point that it's quite, you feel quite comfortable using them because, you know, they've yielded good results. And that's the case with electromagnetic theory. So that's basically how physics works. So when you become a student, they always teach you it's all built on observation. We make deductions based on observation. And this is what I have attempted to use in my trying to explain what's happening in the solar system. This is all new to us. So we've never seen other stars in the solar system. We never even thought it was possible to have other stars in the solar system. But there were things that we don't understand. We never quite understood how the sun really works because the corona is much hotter than the surface. And other things like that we've never really understood fully, but we have incomplete theories as to how it works. Then when you see that certain things about the sun, you start to think, okay, this theory doesn't work, or that theory doesn't work, or we need to come up with a new theory that explains what we observe. And this is what I have been attempting to do. And that is use physics the way it's supposed to be used. You have an observation, you come up with a deduction, you put it together with other observations and deductions to come up with a working theory of what's really going on. This is why I changed from the sun being purely powered by thermonuclear reactions from the interior to being powered by electrical field, electrical potential energy, and thermonuclear reactions. I think both are needed to give the results that you have to get in order to get a brown dwarf star. So I've used the theories that I know. I used observations, and I made logical deductions to build onto those theories that I know and those observations. So I believe this is the way that physics is done. But remember, everything from Newton's laws to the theory of gravitation, all of these are theories. They are not fact. Nothing we know in physics are fact.
Well, let me ask you a question. So whenever you were studying and
yes,
going through your education, I'm sure that you've read a lot of other theories from scientists and other physicists. So just off the top of your head, I know this is like an on-the-spot question, but just off the top of your head, maybe can you remember some of the famous scientists that delved in physics and related physics to all of their work? Just a few, if you could name a few.
Okay, the first is Galileo Galilei, and he came up with some theory about kinematics and relative motion. Then there was, of course, Newton. Newton was the most prolific physicist we've ever seen because he came up with a working theory of light using waves. He came up with his laws. So basically kinematics, the whole of classical mechanics is based on what he did. And then, of course, quantum mechanics is built onto classical mechanics. The same principles are used. So he was the one that started classical mechanics. He basically was the first one to use calculus, up with the first theory for gravitation. So he was, as far as I know, the most prolific genius physicist that we've ever seen. Then, of course, there was Einstein, who came up with the special theory of relativity. But before that, he came up with the explanation for yeah, he actually came up with the first ideas about quantum mechanics. He was the first one that realized that electromagnetic waves could also be described as particles called photons. And then he came up with special relativity, which is a very interesting idea. He based it all on the idea that the speed of light is constant, no matter which relative inertial reference frame you're in, which means that inertial reference frame means, say, if you are in a moving train and it's moving at constant velocity, it's got to move at constant velocity. And then another train goes by moving at a faster constant velocity. So the inertial frame is each of these trains. So they're both moving at constant velocity with respect to each other. But if both, in both trains you have a light wave traveling, then for either observer, that light wave must travel at exactly the same speed. And when he did that, all kinds of things started happening, like time is different in the two inertial reference frames, the length of objects is different, and all kinds of things. So that's all that's Einstein. He came up with some brilliant ideas. And I'm not saying that Einstein was completely correct. There are a lot of people that see a lot of problems with his theories, but there were still brilliant theories, and they came up with very good results. And then there was the general theory of relativity, which also was extremely interesting. And after that, there's Feynman. Now, Feynman, I've used a lot of it, what he's come up with in my own research, because he came up with the idea of Feynman diagrams. And Feynman diagrams are diagrammatic representation of particle interactions. And so it was a brilliant idea. He was also a brilliant physicist. Okay, so I think I've exhausted them for now.
Yes, I think you did a fantastic job. Absolutely. You know, I've been getting a lot of people who've been asking me questions about how things work in the vacuum of space. And, you know, I've gotten several emails, a few comments in the comment section. And, you know, understanding that you're not a rocket scientist, you know, no pun intended. And, you know, I mean, I don't know. Have you ever worked on any rockets or, you know, the NASA program? I don't think so, right?
No, I haven't.
All right. Well, if you were to just think about it, because people have asked me, how do rockets burn in space? I mean, the answer is pretty basic, because there is no oxygen in space, so therefore fire would not be able to exist. But I mean, I know these rockets use other types of fuels. So I mean, how would you answer that question about this vacuum in space and how satellites are able to move around and blah blah blah? You know, I mean, I think it's pretty basic and a basic understanding. But if you could shed some light on it for a few people.
All right, sure. Look, in the Earth's atmosphere, a lot of things burn better. There's oxygen around. So oxygen helps the reaction. The flame itself is a plasma effect. So it's ionized particles giving off light that gives you the sight, the view of that flame. That's why you see it. It's ionized particles that are coming off whatever fuel is being burned. So often the fuel is partly some material combined with oxygen. The two react together and you get burned. You get the flame. But now, even though there's no, certain materials are able to burn, even though they are in a vacuum. For example, certain fuels, you can even use liquid oxygen as a fuel. And or you can use other fuels. There are different kinds. But even though there's no oxygen, the material itself that's being burned will still burn and produce the plasma effect, and you will see a flame. So that is why when you have a rocket in space and it fires its thrusters, you will still see a type of flame coming off the back of the thruster. It's still there because there's a fuel being burned. I mean, the sun itself is burning something. It's fuel, and it's producing plasma, and it's blowing this plasma right, it's exploding plasma right out into space. It's burning something. Stars are burning things. So burning happens in an atmosphere and outside of an atmosphere. It's the same idea. As to space, you know, when a rocket fires its thrusters, what happens is, as the fuel is exploded out of one side, the rocket is propelled in the opposite direction. That is just the principle of conservation of momentum, because you have an increase in mass and speed to one side, so there must be an increase in the opposite side to balance that out. It's basically a balancing effect. That's what conservation of momentum is. So that's why a rocket can be propelled in space. But the different thing about space is there is usually no friction because there's no particles to slow down the rocket. So the rocket, once it attains a certain speed, will keep on moving at that speed unless it can be pulled in by a gravitational field. So we don't actually have really empty space. We have stars and planets, and all of these generate a sort of a gravitational field that can pull in other objects. And it doesn't even have to be a gravitational force. We do know that objects move in orbits around each other. So there's an attractive force there that causes them to do that.
Yes, and
so
I know these rockets. I mean, I've always been fascinated by rockets, and you know, I've watched a lot of programming and I've read a lot about them. And the reason why rockets are so big is the majority of their payload is fuel, and you know, some of that. Well, a good portion of it is liquid oxygen. I was just
that's right.
Reading some information about some of the satellites that have been cast into very, very deep space, all the way out to Pluto. I forget the name of the I don't know if it was New Horizon, either Voyager or New Horizon, but these very smart NASA scientists, they actually miscalculated the amount of liquid oxygen that was aboard this satellite craft, and they actually had enough liquid oxygen left, and this is what boosted them out past Pluto for them to discover, what is it, Iris or Eris, the planet, and that's how they initially discovered that small exoplanet. But anyways, I hope we answered. It was one of the guys in the chat, Adam Sarah. He was asking about that, and I know there's been a few other YouTube channels that have talked about this. How can fire burn in the vacuum of space? Well, I guess you have to take the products in space, mix them properly, and you'll get a burn. You'll get a burn just like you were working out at the gym. Now, what I wanted to get into, what I wanted to get into is our current situation that is coming up very, very rapidly. And I guess maybe another geomagnetic storm. I know this plasma density is going to be skyrocketing probably within the next, I don't know, 12 to 24 hours. I know this will continue through the 29th of April and possibly past the 1st of May.
Yes.
And I know that we've had a lot of situations we've talked about. There have been power outages all over the world. And then you yourself, you were able to catch a witness. Someone sent you some information on a transformer that exploded there where you live.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to tell us about that?
That's
because,
right.
That story was that was amazing.
Yeah, that was actually somebody that I know quite well. To me, you know, I'm going to be without power for the next 2 weeks. And I said, why? Well, the transformer just blew up and the whole substation burned in my suburb last night. And I said, really? Amazing. Really? That happened? You're going to be without? I said, yes. We already were told it's going to take 2 weeks for the suburb where I live to get power back. And I said, yeah, well, that's to be expected. I think it's happening all over the world because of the changing currents in the ionosphere, which is happening because the Earth keeps getting impacted by fast solar wind.
Yeah, not only...
And the impact is almost continuous now.
Yeah, right after you sent me that article, there was another broadcast that there was another transformer explosion. I don't know where it was in the state of Florida, but I think one person lost their life, and a security guard who was trying to help out was very seriously injured. So, you know, these situations can arise very, very quickly. And what I do want to do is I'm going to go ahead and get into your report on this.
Okay.
Now, for some reason, I've been having horrible internet problems for the last couple of days. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I have already been kicked out of this live broadcast 3 times. You may not notice it because I have to log back in very quickly. So, you know, just by chance, if you start talking to me and I'm not there, I'll be right back, because the little internet gremlins are wreaking havoc on the internet in my area. So I am going to go ahead and pull this this report up.
Okay.
Now, you know, I'm going to be quite honest with you. I mean, I have had a lot of people I've seen in the comment section of the last couple of videos, and yeah, you know, I don't know what their deal is, but they seem to think that, you know, these current situations with solar wind, geomagnetic storms, the loss of power outages, I mean, some of them think it's really nothing to be worried about. But I mean, just like you said, when your friend was telling you, how long was it going to be till they had power?
Weeks.
2
weeks.
So listen, ladies and gentlemen, let's just think about this. We've all seen catastrophes all over the world. Here in the United States, people that live in the Gulf of Mexico states, state of Florida, many other states that see severe weather. We all know what power outages are like. So to have one for 2 weeks, just imagine not having any power for 2 weeks. The majority of the population would go absolutely nuts because they wouldn't be able to charge their cell phone. So, you know, the seriousness of the situation is just that. It is a serious situation. And, you know, these issues can be brought about directly from the sun. And taking a look at some of the models and the information that I was looking at today, some new information, some new satellite images that I've never seen before and haven't been privy to, showed an X-ray of the sun, something that we have not seen before on this channel until today. And looking at that X-ray of the sun, and it was an X-ray video in time lapse, up to date from the 27th to the 28th of April. the entire sun looks like one big coronal hole. And I was just showing the doctor this before we came live onto this broadcast. And that's a very serious situation, because we are getting bombarded not only by the solar wind, which, well, basically that contains all of the highly charged particles. And this is what she's been talking about for quite some time now. Yes, also the possibilities of the presence of brown dwarf stars, and I said that plural, stars in our solar system, is a very high possibility. We are no longer on the subject matter of Zecharia Sitchin and the Sumerian tablets and the presence of planet Nibiru, simply because right now I don't think that we are seeing the historical planet Nibiru. Now, I can be completely wrong, and that planet and the other planets can be out there. But right now, the situation that the doctor has been referring to for weeks now, and writing all of these reports for almost a year, the situation with the brown dwarf star, or as Terrell from the Black Star Project, he refers to what they've been monitoring as the black star. And they too have very incredible and credible information. And we're moving closer and closer into the month of May and into these early summer months. So it is very, very hard to come up with precise timelines, but the doctor's been doing her best. And if you preview any other YouTube channel, pretty much you're going to get maybe a picture show, and I don't know, information that I don't know what you're going to do with it. We're looking at some times that may be coming up with not only what is affecting our sun, but what is happening on this planet, meaning the possibilities of World War III and the possibilities of all of this being one big complete cover-up, one big psyop, because all of these countries, they pretty much know by now what is happening within our inner solar system. The fact of the matter is, the situation that we're in is real. And if you do not think that it is real, and you do not think that this information is helping you out in any way, then ladies and gentlemen, simply do not watch it, do not listen to it, don't even think about it. But all this is doing is educating you, so you know when something does happen, you know what is going on. There's nothing wrong with educating yourself, because like I've said before, I will continue to say it, and I'll say it again. Knowledge is power. So if you know what is happening, you're not going to be fooled, and you will not be caught by surprise. So we've been receiving a lot of heat from others about the information that is coming out through this channel and through the doctor and Mr. Chris Potter. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to grasp at anything we can, because they are taking away all of our instruments, all of our information, and the doctor's been doing her best to make sense of all of it. And there is definitely something occurring around the Earth, within our inner solar system, and as I mentioned before, on this planet, with the people that think they run humanity. We all know who that is. But doctor, going into this report,
Yes,
the solar wind and geomagnetic storms. Now, we just talked about these power outages, but I'm going to give you the floor now, and you can go ahead and go over this report, because I read it earlier, found it very, very interesting, and once again, I learned something, within 15 minutes that I didn't know yesterday. So it's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Scott. All right, so the solar wind is basically ionized particles or plasma emitted by the sun. And it emits these continuously, and there are three types. There's the slow solar wind, which blows continuously. There's the fast solar wind, which blows from coronal holes. And there are coronal mass ejections, which happen now and then from active regions in the sun. And the active regions we can see are always very bright spots, or where we can see there are sunspots. Now, all the solar wind is made up of mainly three particles: protons, which are the same as hydrogen nuclei, electrons, and alpha particles, which are helium nuclei. So you can see the picture there. It shows the three types of solar wind. So the first
Did we lose you?
Oh, I think we lost her.
where the plasma
Oh, there she goes.
corona of the sun,
We lost you there for a minute.
corona of the sun.
Yeah, we lost you for a minute there. I think we're all having some intermittent internet problems.
Okay. Okay. Oh, did you lose? Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. You could pick up, I guess, right here where you see my cursor.
Yeah.
Somewhere around in there, and you just go at your own pace.
All right. So I was talking about the slow solar wind. It's constantly emitted from the sun's corona, but unless it's interrupted by a coronal mass ejection. If there's a coronal mass ejection, the slow solar wind stops for a little while. And then there's the fast solar wind, which comes from coronal holes. And the coronal holes are areas where the plasma or the corona of the sun is less dense, so there are less particles there. So the particles from the interior of the sun can come right out from the interior through the surface of the sun and out into space. And these travel at very fast speeds. They travel at speeds of about 800 kilometers per second. Whilst the slow solar wind, the speed is about 400 kilometers per second. Okay, and then CMEs, coronal mass ejections, come from active areas of the sun. And these are huge explosions of large amounts of plasma out into space. And when they hit the Earth's atmosphere, they of course cause what's called geomagnetic storm, because it's very dense. All right, so there in figure 2, you can see the solar wind does not travel in straight lines from the sun. It actually travels in spirals. And the reason for that is because these ionized particles follow the magnetic field lines of the sun. And the sun has a magnetic field, and the sun is rotating. So it means that the sun's magnetic field is rotating, which means its magnetic field lines form that spiral there.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to bring this up for everyone. The model that I use. So you can go ahead with your commentary. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up real quick so everyone can see that spiral motion, because I look at it every day. I just want everyone to see what you're referring to.
That's right. It's just because the sun is rotating that the magnetic field lines form that spiral. And of course, the particles follow that spiral. So now the solar wind does not accelerate right from the surface of the sun. What happens is pushes the particles out, and then about 1 sun radii distance from the surface of the sun, it suddenly starts accelerating away from the sun. And there are several theories why it accelerates. Some people say it's pressure. Some people say it's the gravitational attraction of the sun no longer keeps particles coming into the sun at that distance. Some people say it's electromagnetic potential between that point on the sun and the outer solar system. Either way, so the particles accelerate from that point. And so they move out into space. The magnetic field, yes, there you can see the spiral. That's the solar wind coming out of the sun. There's always one area where you have high density, one or sometimes more than one area. And those areas of high density are where the fast solar wind catches up to the slow solar wind. So you get regions of higher density. That's what you see there. That's where the red at the edge of the figure.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and explain this to everybody real quick. And ladies and gentlemen, if you follow my cursor here at the bottom, this is several days out. If you see the date up here, it's going to go from April 27th. This predictor model is taking it out a few days into May. Right below here at the bottom, where you see my cursor, those are the dates. Stereo A and Stereo B, those are satellites that are facing the sun. We get a lot of information from these two satellites. But what we're mainly paying attention to here, where you see my cursor up here, is the Earth and the plasma density. And as you can see, as we approach the 29th, right here, follow my cursor, you're going to see this increase. It's a pretty dramatic increase in this plasma density. And this will last all the way into the 1st of May. And then as you see going into the 3rd, we don't see past that, but you can see it's starting to rise again. So this is what the doctor's explaining to you, the spiral of the solar wind. It's kind of like the spokes on a wheel. But go ahead, Doc. I just wanted to explain this to everybody, what they're actually looking at here.
What you actually see there, it's the top graph, the green, where it says Earth for plasma density. So that shows you the plasma density going up from the 29th. It spikes on the 30th and then goes down. And then the graph below that for radial velocity, the green one for Earth as well. As you can see, where the plasma density is high, the radial velocity is low. After the plasma density drops, you see the radial velocity increase, and increases up to 550 kilometers per second. Now, the slow solar wind velocity is being 300 and 400 kilometers per second. So a radial velocity of 550 means that you have some solar wind which is faster than just normal slow solar wind. So it means that we're getting a mixture nowadays between slow and fast solar wind almost all the time. Because the sun has so many coronal holes, there's so many particles coming in. Also, don't forget we have brown dwarf stars in the solar system, and these things produce their own solar wind. They also they are stars, so they also emit ionized particles, and there are particle transfers between the sun and these brown dwarf stars. So, of course, what they emit, those ionized particles, adds up to the solar wind we get from the sun.
So people are basically, they're walking around with their head in the clouds, once again, no pun intended, but they really don't know what they're being impacted by as of lately, do they?
No. And some people know what's going on, that it's a fast solar wind. Even if you think it's just from the sun, you don't want to think that there are brown dwarf stars, and that there are, according to the evidence I've seen, I believe that they are there. And I don't think that all that's happening with the sun would be happening if they were not there. So, but even if you just think, if you look at the sun and see the coronal holes on the sun where it's connected to these brown dwarf stars, you start to realize there's a lot of fast solar wind coming out of the sun. And the fast solar wind is even more damaging often than CMEs. This is what I discovered. That's the one reference I used in that paper. And that is when the Earth is impacted by fast solar wind, the effects stay present in the ionosphere for 4 days after that. What happens in the ionosphere is there are changes in the currents in the ionosphere because it's made up of ionized particles. And these ionized particles can come from radiation. So if it's hit by a solar flare or whether it's hit by a CME, the particles in the ionosphere are ionized. And you get lots of electrons, lots of positive ions. These form currents. When we get in the strength of the currents, it produces induced currents on the surface of the Earth. So any transformers, any power lines will feel these induced currents. And then there can be power surges. And then that's when transformers explode, when you get fires coming from power lines and things like that. It damages the whole grid. And if the effect is very large, it can destroy entire power grids.
Now,
yeah.
what we're looking at now, and I mentioned earlier in the beginning of our broadcast, and this is part of the GOES satellite system, and this is actually an X-ray video of the sun. And this is something that we have never seen before. I have never seen before. But looking directly at this, we are being faced with a pretty massive sunspot with a lot of activity on it that is actually facing Earth pretty close. But when you're viewing this now, we are now actually able to see things on the sun that we haven't seen before. And what it looks like, and we were discussing this right before our broadcast, is, you've all seen the dark coronal holes. Well, take a look at what you're seeing now through the X-ray. It almost seems that this whole entire side of the sun, I'd have to say 85% of it is a coronal hole. We just haven't been seeing it. So, Doctor, what do you take from what you're viewing here with this new GOES X-ray?
I'm not surprised. I mean, in the second paper that I wrote, I compared the sun in 2011 with the sun in 2017. And it's so much darker in 2011. And I have been thinking this for a few weeks now, that the sun is basically turning into one entire coronal hole. I think if this continues, one of these days, the whole surface of the sun, except for maybe a few sunspots, will be a coronal hole. So then we'll be getting fast solar wind from everywhere from the sun. This would have a dramatic effect on the Earth because it's not just the power grids. You have fast solar wind, you get induced currents, not just on the grids, you get it in the core of the Earth. You get the mantle warming up, you get the earthquakes, the tsunamis, and the volcanoes as well. You get chaotic weather. It affects air. It affects how the wind moves in the atmosphere. It affects how the ocean currents move. It affects everything on the Earth, and you get chaos and disasters because of it.
Well, speaking of the power outages, right now, coming across the wire, Mike from around the world just uploaded a video straight to YouTube right now. Once again, Los Angeles residents are dealing with massive power outages all over the city. and the
Sure.
metro area happening
Oh my-
right now as we speak. And there is also a very, very crazy situation right now brewing with our jet stream. Our jet stream
Oh.
is now completely out of control. And what I'm visualizing right now, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here very, very soon. I've
Yeah.
never seen anything like this before in my life. But Doc,
Yeah.
go ahead and continue with your observations on this. I'm going to go ahead and pull this information that's coming up
Okay.
right now from Mike from
But-
around the world.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Scott. But as I said, the two things are related. Whether it's the weather patterns, whether it's the jet stream, the fact that we have fast solar wind continuously impacting the Earth's magnetosphere and affecting our ionosphere, it's causing these currents to surge through the ionosphere. It's causing currents to surge everywhere in the atmosphere, inside the Earth, and it's causing a lot of problems on Earth. And these problems are only increasing as the coronal holes get larger and larger.
My goodness. Well, this is what Mike's talking
Yeah.
about right now.
Mm-hmm.
You can see,
Yes.
well, let's just take a quick look. Sorry to
It's
jump
totally
around.
broken.
Yeah, sorry to jump
It's
around so
broken.
much.
It's-
And yeah,
No,
it
it's fine.
yeah, it looks really, really bad. This is the current situation that Mike is talking about right
Mhm.
now. This massive weather
Yes.
pattern, this almost called it solar wind. I'm sorry, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
I haven't either. It's just it's doing things it's never done before. It's broken up into pieces.
I mean, we literally have another jet stream
Yeah.
right almost above the almost above the equator right here.
Yes.
Another vortex, a very, very strong vortex right here off of the coast of Mexico and Southern California. I'm scared to move the globe to see what is happening here.
Yeah. Yeah, you see, this is also to be expected because remember, on top of the fast and the solar wind, the magnetic north is shifting. So it can wobble in all kinds of directions. Either way, our north and south poles are going to get some more sun than usual because of, the north and the south pole moving from their normal positions.
Doctor,
And
do
if that happens,
you see what I'm seeing here real quick?
yes.
There is a jet stream going across the top of the Earth.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah, because that's not the real North Pole anymore.
Oh my God.
That's why it's happening. It's not where the North Pole is anymore. The North Pole is shifted somewhere else. The Earth is wobbling to the point that that's not the North Pole anymore. We still call it the North Pole, but that's not where the North Pole is anymore.
Oh dear God. Look at the, this is the South Pole region.
Mm-hmm. You see, there's something there over the South Pole as well.
I'm very, very serious. I'm not trying to startle anyone. As they say, fear mongering. But look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be very straight up and honest with you. I've never in my life seen any type of weather patterns like this. I've been studying weather for more than 20 years, and yeah, I've never seen anything like this whatsoever. I could only imagine being a meteorologist right now and trying to decipher this. What you're looking at is more than one jet stream. I don't even know what to call these. This is very erratic right here. These jet streams.
Well, I would call them sub-jet streams because the jet streams are breaking up. They don't know where to go anymore because remember the Earth is wobbling.
Look at all of these vortexes. I mean, there's small vortexes of air everywhere. My goodness.
Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I did a little weather report on some extended weather that looked like it was going to be coming our way, and all I received was a bunch of emails and comments. You know, the comments were saying, "Oh, well, hey, Scott, you know, your forecast was wrong. It's not raining here." Oh, guess what there, buddy? Take a look at what's going on around the world on your globe right now. So I don't care if it's not raining in your neck of the woods, but there are people elsewhere that are right in the midst, probably, of some very serious situations weather-wise. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, just because we're reporting on something, you know, and if it's weather-related, if it's not happening right over your house, you know, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but we're just going by some of the models that we're using. And as you can clearly see, there's some weird weather that will probably be looming from the very erratic jet stream. I'm a little thrown back by this. I've never seen anything like this before in my life.
No, it's very strange. Very strange.
Yeah, this, absolutely no doubt. Well, you know, sorry about that, Doc. We're going to go ahead and we'll get right back.
Oh, this is very interesting, Scott.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
I haven't either. I'm as surprised as you. But to tell you the truth, nowadays, doesn't surprise me all that much anymore, because things are getting very, very strange in the solar system.
Yeah, there's definitely no doubt about that. And, you know, I keep feeling over and over again that, you know, there is this huge cover up of information once again.
Definitely.
And I mean, we know damn well whenever they get into these psyops and these so-called training exercises, soon after, or either that day of their training exercise, or you know, sometime, you know, later on in the near future, all of a sudden this event actually occurs. So it's almost like predictive programming, or just plain desensitizing people to what they're seeing, getting them used to seeing fire and rescue, police everywhere, federal emergency management organizations, and the military. Because I've been getting a lot of emails, a lot of comments, once again, about troop movements around the United States. I'm not hearing anything else about the rest of the world, but we're talking about this country right now, and they're doing some funny things. So it's just, I think it's just a matter of time before we witness something very horrible, something absolutely horrifying. I can just feel it in the pit of my stomach. I don't know about anybody else, but, you know, if it smells like fish, it's fish. So, Doc, if you want to go ahead and you know, continue with what you were discussing on the solar wind, because this is very interesting.
Okay, thank you, Scott. All right, so the solar wind comes from the sun, and it hits the Earth's magnetosphere. And it's a bubble that generated by the Earth's magnetic field, which deflects the solar wind particles so they don't penetrate it. But it's actually not a perfect shield. Some of the particles always manage to get in. And as you can see in the figure below, they usually head for the poles. And at the poles, they are reflected, because that's where the magnetic field is the most intense, at the North and South Pole. And they end up spiraling around certain magnetic field lines. And they form what's called the Van Allen belts, where you get in one and electrons in the other. So as you can see, some of the particles always get in, and they also concentrate around the North Pole and form those circles. They're the green ones. That's called the auroral ovals. And that's where you would then get the aurora, because you have ionized particles moving around in that area. That's right there. And then these ionized particles interact with the atmosphere, and they excite the particles. And when they come down to the ground state again, they emit a photon, and a photon is light. So you see the different colors in the sky. And I have a picture, I think, further below of the aurora, which is quite beautiful. Yes, there you are.
I found once again today, I found a new model through that new GOES satellite that actually shows you the aurora as the Earth turns. I showed it in my video earlier today, and shows you how far people in the United States are now seeing the aurora borealis.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is traveling very, very deep. I mean, there are people that were reporting seeing it from the state of Colorado.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a sign of a geomagnetic storm. When the aurora is seen further south than the Arctic, then that means that the Earth's ionosphere is being impacted more than usual. So the amount of particles getting into the ionosphere above the poles is too much for it to contain to just in the Arctic. So it spills out into other areas further south. So that's what's happening. It's just too many particles coming in, and that's why.
You know, every time I see these photographs, I've never seen the aurora myself, but every time I see these photographs, I immediately think to myself, because I see them on spaceweather.com every single morning, and I look at them and I just think, wow, that looks completely fake. You know, that doesn't even look real. But to step outside, you know, at night and see this beautiful array of colors above you would be absolutely spectacular. But you know, I mean, I'm not saying that the aurora is damaging, but it can definitely have some adverse effects on our radios, cellular telephones, internet access.
Well, it's a sign.
Yeah.
It's a sign that there's a geomagnetic storm going on. And when that happens, then radio transmissions can be affected. Usually not for long, but yeah. But you see, in the picture, why it looks fake is because it's not moving in the picture. When you take a video of it, you actually see it moving from, you know, as an area gets lighted more than others, and the light seems to flow from one position to another. So then it looks more real. So that's also why it doesn't look quite real to you in this picture. Yeah, so
picture though, you know, it is beautiful. I've seen video of them moving in full motion.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little freaky if you've never seen that before. You just happen to step outside and you see something like that, you would probably have one of those WTF moments. Because I know I would. I mean, I know for a fact I would. But let's go ahead and let's move a little further into your article.
Okay.
I could stare at that picture all day long. I might even make it my screensaver after we're finished.
Good. So the geomagnetic storms are caused usually by CMEs or solar flares. And the solar flares also ionize the particles in the ionosphere, and they cause these currents, and they cause the effects that we've talked about already. I don't actually mention the problems with radio communications, but that happens. And then I mainly focus on, in this article, on the currents in the ionosphere, which then cause induced currents in electrical grids and things like that. So the CMEs cause large variations in the currents in the ionosphere, and then they cause the auroral patterns and so on. And the stronger the CME, then the further south you will see the aurora. You can have power surges in power lines and so on. So we can move further down. But what I actually found is that the fast solar wind can do exactly the same thing as CMEs, except that the effect of the fast solar wind is longer lasting than CME. So when the Earth gets impacted by a CME, you can get a geomagnetic storm that lasts a few hours, part of a day. But when the fast solar wind suddenly hits the atmosphere, the effect lasts for 4 days after the Earth is impacted by that fast solar wind.
My goodness.
Yes.
4 days.
4 days, that's the thing. It's affected by for about 4 days from the date of impact. So what you would see is you would see the high density first, and then you start to see the effect on the ionosphere, and then you start seeing the current surges on the surface and so on. And that lasts 4 days. And this is why fast solar wind is so much worse than CMEs. Plus, we are actually getting continuously impacted by some fast solar wind, because the moment the solar wind goes above 400 kilometers per second, it's not just slow solar wind we're getting impacted with, some fast solar wind as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I calculate the solar wind just about every day, and you know, we've been impacted at 1.2, 1.3, 4, 5, 2 million miles per hour for people in the U.S. that aren't used to using the kilometers, and that is kilometers per second. And not too long ago, we had a solar wind that was impacting the Earth at 2.5 million miles per hour.
Wow.
I mean, that is, I think that's about as intense as I've ever seen. I've seen it around 1.7 million miles per hour. But that day that I read that report, I actually thought it was wrong. And I kept searching for more and more information to confirm it. And sure enough, I mean, I confirmed it on three different sites. You know, that you have to go to NASA and NOAA, because this is the only information that we have. But they all confirmed it at 2.56 million miles per hour.
Sure. Yeah. That is high. And it's probably, it may increase. And because the number of particles that are extremely fast will keep increasing. And that's why I say now that the sun has become a source of cosmic radiation. That's also why cosmic radiation goes up. Of course, cosmic radiation has its own problems, which we've talked about before. But it also ionizes particles in the atmosphere. And it's a health risk for every living organism on Earth. And it has impact on weather, and it causes cloud cover, and of course it will also lead to earthquakes and through induced currents.
Well, we've definitely seen the increase in the magnitude of the earthquakes. They are steady over magnitude 5, high 4s, you know, mid-level 5s. They're cracking off all over the entire world right now. Those areas of the globe that are in seismic zones. The earthquakes are going to town, ladies and gentlemen. And, just because you don't live in an area where they have earthquakes and you don't have earthquakes where you live, well, let me open up your eyes, because there have been earthquakes recently in areas where they normally don't have them. Georgia, South Carolina, Pennsylvania. They're having some earthquakes up in Canada. Areas that they normally don't see an earthquake.
Yes, right.
So the bottom line is we're definitely looking at a very, very, I don't even know what the word to put on it. Crazy, intense. I don't know what the word to describe, what is happening. Chaotic is a very good word. I would have to agree. And, ladies and gentlemen, you can sit there and you can downplay all of the information, because if it's not directly affecting you, there are other people on this planet that it will be directly affecting. So, for instance, right now, the report that I just had come in, that there are massive power outages all over Los Angeles and the suburbs. Well, that's directly affecting all of these people.
Hey, I wanted to comment on that.
Go for it, buddy.
Level 3 is the internet backbone, and you can check out the outage map at downdetector.com. And right now I'm seeing outages in Canada, San Francisco, Mountain View, Florida, New York, Boston, St. Louis, Chicago, Minneapolis, Dallas, Houston, Denver, Phoenix, Edmonton, and Vancouver. I'm not done. Ireland, the UK. I've never seen this much activity other than when there was a vulnerability exposed on the internet backbone. That was, I think, back in October or November, and we got pretty hammered. But the outages, what's interesting, just looking at the map, because it's a geographical map, it's where North America, and then to the right is Europe, and it's like the same parallel. So I find that interesting. And then I don't know if that means anything, but India and Bengaluru, as well as Melbourne, Australia, Melbourne is, I guess, how they say that, and then Tokyo, Japan. I just don't remember seeing this many outages that quickly. Now, it may have everything to do with the solar activity. And, I guess you could just do a quick Google search for anyone that doesn't believe that, that solar activity absolutely does have a huge impact on our electronics. So just even from an internet backbone point of view, if we have that many outages, and it's been a couple days now in a row, and there is a direct correlation with the sun activity, it should be something we pay attention to.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same. I'm seeing the same information, buddy. I mean, I have it coming in, and again, ladies and gentlemen, just because it hasn't happened to you in your localized area doesn't mean that it's not on the way. I mean, I know for a fact I've been having some very severe internet issues. I've called my cable company, the internet company, several times, and they just give me the song and the dance, because the people in the customer service, they don't really know what's happening. But I do. We can see what is happening. And again, just because it's not happening in your neck of the woods or your neighborhood or your town doesn't mean that it's not on the way. So I think that definitely, any type of preparation that you think that you should do. I had some people asking me in situations like this, do batteries work? Flashlight batteries, your car batteries in general. I'm pretty sure they do work. I think they might have been referring to something like an EMP strike or something of that nature. But just dealing with power outages, well, yes, batteries will work. I would definitely have some candles and, you know, just some extra things around that you think that you might need. It doesn't harm anything to just be prepared, because then when the situation comes up and you're not prepared, then you're kicking yourself in the ass because everything's closed. You can't use a credit card. You can't use a debit card. They can't open the cash register because there's no electricity, and you need some vital supplies. So people take all of this for granted. And I was told very long ago that this was going to be the pattern of how things went down. And believe it or not, this timeline is right on its mark.
Yes.
And to me, that is what is scary, because anyone can create a timeline and say whatever they want. But when that timeline is precise and those things are now actually starting to occur like clockwork, well, that's when you have to open up your eyes and say, okay, here we go. And if you're not prepared, if you are not prepared for even the smallest of situations, you're going to have a bad time. And we all know what it's like not to be without power. We've all had power outages. But just imagine trying to withstand a power outage, as the doctor mentioned, for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks. That means all of the food in your refrigerator is now garbage. If you live in a climate right now where it's very, very hot, that means no air conditioning, no fan, no way to charge that dreaded cell phone. So therefore, communication is going to start to fall to the wayside. So, ladies and gentlemen, whenever we're referring to all of this right now, you may or may not think that this has anything to do with Planet X, Nibiru, but in general, this has everything to do with it. Because this is exactly how it was described to me not less than a year ago. And this timeline, wow. I mean, it's happening. It's happening. And things are going from being very subtle to very intense. So I guess we will sit back and we're all going to take the ride. There's no doubt about that. Whether you believe it or not, you're here. You're on this planet. Whether you're a believer or not, we're going to take this ride together. That much is a fact. I'm starting to get fired up now. All right, Doc, we're going to go ahead and move into, I mean, we covered that top portion.
I think, yeah, we've covered most of it. This is one of the substations that I talk about, that I give some of the examples where this is happening around the world.
Wow, so that's the one that blew up.
Yeah, that's the transformer going up in flames. And the whole substation burned down. The whole thing. The whole building, everything burnt down.
Wow. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if any of you have ever heard a transformer blow up. And I'm talking about the transformers that are on the telephone poles, you know, outside of your house or on the corner. And I lived in South Florida for over 20 years. And, you know, we always had these electrical storms and, you know, lightning. And I had a lightning strike on a transformer on the telephone pole in front of my apartment building. And it sounded like the atom bomb went off. It was the loudest explosion that I've ever heard. And it wasn't the lightning, it was the transformer exploding. And it was an amazing sight. And it was only about 25 or 30 feet from my apartment building, and it shook the whole entire building, and it was a 25-story building. And like I said, I thought a bomb went off. So these situations do occur. They will occur. And if we are going to go through what is actually coming, you know, I hope none of us lose power. I really don't. But by the looks of everything,
pleasant. It's not pleasant.
Yeah, especially for 2 weeks. You know, people start complaining. People start complaining and calling the power company in the first 5 minutes. You know, true. What are they going to do for the next? You know, if they're without power for 2 weeks? My God.
That's right.
You know, we're going to go ahead and move over to the next report that you had, and this is the one that we were actually going to cover yesterday, but I had internet issues that were very, very severe, and we just couldn't get to it. And this report is the sun getting weaker, and what can certain SDO images tell us? So go ahead, Doc. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you. And
okay. All right. So here I've been thinking about it because I've been looking at these images for a while. That the sun, as I said before, is basically turning into a coronal hole, and we can see it in the X-ray image from the GO satellite that we looked at. But here it's the ultraviolet in the 21.1 nanometer, which I like to use because the coronal always looks larger. And as you can see there in figure 1, that's the March 15th, 2017 image. So it's not, it's close to our present time, not far into the past. And then below that, from figure 2, you see the different images from previous years. So 2000 and, can you scroll down a bit more? I don't remember anymore what I put it in. Okay, so the first one is
13, 14,
2011. Yes. And so the last one, but as you can see in all of those images in figure 2, the sun's corona is a lot larger in every single one of them, even in the 2011 image. Now, why I like to use the 2011 and compare it with the 2017 is because the last solar maximum happened in 2014. So 2017 is 3 years away from the maximum, and 2011 is also 3 years away from the maximum, but on the other side. So it's good to compare the two. You can see the corona is much
big difference. There is, I mean,
a huge difference.
If you just want to compare colors, I mean, and that's what we're kind of looking at in layman's terms.
That's right. Yes,
follow my cursor to the top left, looking at the dark color of the current image from March 15th compared to what we're looking at in 2011, 2012, 13, 2014, 15, and so on, you can see how it has basically degraded. I mean, I'm going to have to use that word because that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like the sun's situation has definitely degraded. And I think I counted those backwards because that one, I don't have the actual date on these, but
no, that first one was 2000. The first one is 2011. That's one. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So that's correct.
Yeah, and even the coronal holes,
exactly. I was going to mention that.
Yeah, they look smaller and thinner, and you can still see, you know, some of the I don't even know if I'm using the right words. The surface area within that coronal hole. The ones that we've been seeing lately are just deep and black, and there's nothing.
That's right. They are blacker.
Good, Doc. You can take over.
So the reason why they are blacker is because there's less and less light being emitted from these coronal holes. So as you mentioned, the coronal holes are getting larger. More of the surface of the sun is now a coronal hole. So now you see in those two images, the first one is the 2017 image. And you can see there's a coronal hole at the sun's south pole and at the sun's north pole. At the 2011 image, there's a coronal hole only at the south pole. And the sun is much brighter in 2011, which is the second image. The corona is much brighter and much larger in the 2011 image. And again, as I said, this is 2011 is also 3 years away from the solar maximum. So we can see already from there that the sun has definitely weakened. Even though it's got it now has some sunspots on it. It didn't even have that before. But it's a lot less sunspots in 2011. Look how much more active the sun looked in 2011. Look how bright the sunspots look.
Oh yeah, there's many of them. They're all over the sun. And just as of recently, we've finally started seeing some sunspots. Oh, less than a month ago, there was that one very large sunspot. I think the measurement of the sunspot was 175,000 miles long, which they refer to as a very large sunspot. And the one that's actually facing us now, that is in the dead center of the sun, is huge, and it has been active, well, for one complete rotation of the sun, because it actually came back around.
Yes.
And it looks much bigger, and it looks much stronger.
Well, yeah, what they actually do is they seem to close up and then they open up again.
So
come around.
This part of your report here, we're looking once again at some comparisons.
That's right. So this is the top row is April 2017, and the bottom row is April 2011. And there you can see the dramatic difference between the sun. And because they're both 3 years away from the solar maximum, it should look the same, but it's not. The coronal holes are much larger. The sun is much darker. It's almost like most of the surface of the sun is turning into a coronal hole, like I said before, because it's turning so dark. The corona is so much smaller in 2017. There are active regions, especially in the last image, which I think is from April 22nd. But it's nothing in comparison to what you see in the images on the bottom row, which are from 2011.
Figures 5, 6, and 7 are totally obvious that you can see that it's distinctly darker. Now, I had put on a presentation of your document, and I kidded around a lot in that presentation saying, or it's the camera, to make a very clear point that I don't think it's the camera. Now, I don't have any evidence to back it up because we're looking at, we're using observation, right? To accumulate the data points that we are pursuing. So
that's right.
It is very clear in every wavelength that you show, just from a layman's point of view, especially at the very last figure where you show, I think it's 4 or 5 different wavelengths. It's obvious. So I just wanted to point that out, that I really don't think it's the camera. I kind of overemphasize the point just to really clarify that I don't know of any type of a camera issue that has been reported. Now I know, like, we had stereo B went down, and the another one that I just read about, it's not functional anymore, the Geo 13 or whatever. And you know, I just haven't heard that about all of the wavelengths for these particular satellite, cameras. So I wanted to again triple emphasize the point that it can't be the friggin' camera. There's no way. And I'm nobody. I mean, I'm just some layman, basic guy. I'm just kind of looking at it from a very rudimentary point of view, especially figure 7, where you can see in the red, and I forget, you know, I should have them memorized by now. Oh, it's the 30.4 nanometer, where it's totally dark, man. And then the next one is the 33.5, and he's super dark. And then I'm like, okay, well, I don't ever see the 17.1 because he's kind of the ugly green dude, but he's dark. You can see he's dark. And then the visible light one. It just, there's no sunspots, right? And he's kind of like pale, almost like he's a flat disc looking guy. There's no globe-ness to him. And I don't know why that is, but it's very distinct to me.
Yes.
Anyway, I just want to make those general observations and interrupt you guys real quick and just say hi. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt whenever you look at these comparisons, they are, I mean, you could actually be colorblind. You can be colorblind. I mean, I'm talking clinically colorblind, and you can see the huge difference. Now, you know, doctor, I just had one question. So much talk about this grand solar minima. That's all I hear. That's all I hear. That's all I hear.
Same.
You know, so, you know, taking into consideration this whole grand solar minima. Now, obviously, you know, based on my age, your age, and Chris's age, we've obviously been through these grand solar minimas before, correct?
Not sure we've had one during our lifetime, to tell you the truth.
Okay, well, there you go.
But the thing is, we are not actually having a solar minima. I mean, if we were to look at the sun's output of radiation, that might be down. Due to the coronal holes, we are actually getting more radiation. So if it wasn't for the coronal holes, if we were to just look at the sun's brightness, we would say that its radiation output is. But because there's so much radiation that comes out of coronal holes, the sun's output of radiation and is actually going up. Plus, don't forget that the coronal holes are there because there are other objects that the sun's connecting to. Objects are also emitting radiation. They also have solar winds. They also emit ionized particles. They are brown dwarf stars, so they are surrounded by ionized particles. These ionized particles are now filling, I'm sure, the whole of the inner solar system. They are impacting our atmosphere. And so there is actually more radiation. And if it even just the fast solar wind, as it impacts the Earth's atmosphere, it's going to heat up. That's why all the planets in the solar system have warmed up. And they warm up from the bottom. So the ocean warms up, and then it heats up the atmosphere, and we get volcanic eruptions on the surface of, on the bottom of the ocean, and that warms up the ocean. And so it's a long cycle of changes because of the increased radiation, which actually heats up the planet. So even if the sun may not be as bright as before, the planet is warming up. A mismatch between this idea of a grand solar minimum and the grand solar maximum temperature on Earth because of what's happening.
Yeah, I was just looking at some earthquake activity right now as you were speaking, and the situation that's brewing down in the country of Chile. Once again, they are just under siege from these earthquakes that are occurring right off the shore of the capital of Santiago. And just the other day, they had a very, very, very large earthquake, and it was right off the shore in the ocean, and it was felt as far as 100 miles inland. And just getting reports now that the situation is still going on, still, and the magnitude of the earthquakes are all in the high 4s, high 3s, some of them in the 5s. And 4 hours ago, another 6.1 right off the coast, and not very far from the coastline. It's impacting a city east of, or excuse me, west of the capital. But this town, this city is right on the coastline. Is it Valparaiso? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share this information with everybody here. And once again, sorry to get off of the topic, but
that's fine.
There are things that are right now popping all over the world, and I kind of thought that this was going to happen as we moved into the day and progressed into the day.
Wow, look at that!
Yeah,
larger.
Zoom into this down here, and I do have a lot of subscribers that are from South America and the country of Chile and Argentina. And as you can see, this massive cluster has been going on for days now. Now, some of the earthquakes that they've already been removed. So this is the 6.1 that has just occurred 4 hours ago, and only a depth of 20 meters.
Sure.
It's very, very shallow.
Oh my, that is extremely shallow. That's very surprising.
And then 4 hours ago, well, it's going to update. Let's see what we got here. But there was another 5.7. Oh, there it is. There's the big one right there. Magnitude 7.2 just hit in the Philippines, and the depth only 10 meters.
My, 10 meters. That is very strange.
Let's see if this, oh, this was in the ocean.
Sure. That's very strange.
Well, let's see here, 10 meters. This looks like a some type of a port. I wonder if this is going to create a tsunami. Maybe not. I mean, a 7.2. But there you go.
7.2 is quite a strong earthquake. It could create a tsunami.
Especially if they're downgrading them. And by the way, the grand solar minimum, good luck finding good information about that online. I think it is a topic we should discuss and kind of pull apart because it's a valid point. However, excuse me, that's not the right word I was going to say. I believe the last grand solar minimum, however, was in 1755, if that's what I read real quick. I don't know a lot. I believe that you and I had worked on a small paper about the grand solar minimum and the ice age. And I thought that was, at the time, I was really actually interested to see what the argument was and what that was all about. So it's still something we should consider. And even if that is exactly what's happening, that goes back to your other paper where, hey, is there a direct correlation with the sun and earthquakes and earth activity? So that's a huge point. As soon as Scott went into looking at those earthquakes, and then here just another kind of random thought.
That's right.
It seems like we kind of go in these little cycles of earthquakes and volcanic activity. And there's been a few times when I was letting both of you know the other day that, boy, I tell you what, I've got scared a few times where there's too many places popping off at once. Now, I think it is really good for us to keep an eye on places like Chile and Vanuatu and Japan, etc., where we keep seeing the same name over and over and over again. It keeps popping off over and over again. So I'm glad that we're actually covering that part of this too, because, hey, what if that grand solar minimum action has everything to do with the activity on the Earth? And that'll be something new and fun for us to learn, right? Because if the last one was 1755, they didn't have their Apple computers and stuff that we got now.
Yeah,
so we can
I'm checking.
cool new,
I'm checking the.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm checking the USGS right now to see if there was a tsunami warning issued. the internet's running very, very slow, as you can see. And again, you know, I have the fastest upgrade of internet service there is. Oh, well, it looks like there is a threat, magnitude 7.2.
Good job,
depth
bro.
has now been what is it, 6 miles. 6 miles deep.
Scott, what is your understanding of why that's important, as well as the physicist? Why is that important, the depth?
Well, I mean, this is very, very near the surface. Now, if you had a magnitude 7.2 that was very deep, oh, let's just say 250 kilometers. These earthquakes that occur that are very close to the surface and outlying in the ocean, this would cause an immediate tsunami. Yeah, this would cause an immediate tsunami. We just saw the geographical area where there is a huge inlet, which looks like a port. I'm not familiar with the area, but I mean, geographically, we could, you know, we took a look at it. There is a huge horseshoe-shaped port facing that earthquake. It's right there. We're going to go ahead and pull it up.
Yeah.
Good. This is a good segue into what we were talking about. So good on you to actually start looking at some of this. I'm impressed that you have a lot of this stuff already pre-bookmarked. I'm still learning.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
what happens is the earthquakes, if they deep down, you can imagine there's a lot of rock around it, so it sort of stops the shaking from much, or you know, on the surface you don't feel it as much.
Okay.
But if you on the surface, if you get the same amount of shaking, there's not much to hold it together, so you feel it a lot more.
So
hopefully that's what happened.
While Scott's bringing that up, I'll just tell you guys real quick. I was in the Loma Prieta earthquake. What is it, 1987 here in the Bay Area. And I was working in a place called Chuck's Produce, and a little produce stand, and it started happening. Now, I just got to tell you this story real quick.
Okay.
Just because it's kind of funny, and I think you guys will kind of enjoy it. And the listeners, readers, viewers, everybody will kind of think it's funny. So I had remembered from back in the day a cartoon where the guys were flying on horses up in the air, and there was an earthquake, and it shook them down. They were in the air and they fell down to the earth. And I'm like, and I always remembered I wanted to try to jump up in the air and see if it shook when the earth shook. So yeah, Chris Potter is on the side of the friggin' road, jumping up and down. Dude, it doesn't shake in the air, bro. As the road looks like it's water, ripples down. So I look down the road, and it looks like it's ripples in water. So earthquake activity that I had an opportunity to see, I can only imagine. So yeah, if it is up more on the top and there's more movement, yeah, it looks like a friggin' ocean that you're in, and it's the dirt, it's the pavement. That's right. So anyway, I just got to tell you guys that real quick story, and you go with your bad selves now. Go for it.
Yeah, this is actually, this earthquake occurred not too far from a fault line and also the Philippines Trench. It is quite a distance from the fault line, but if you look at the red lines, ladies and gentlemen, these are all fault lines that have been identified in the past. And usually, you know, you'll see these larger earthquakes directly on or very near to these fault lines. But anything at this particular time, well, you're seeing it. It is possible.
Philippines has been active.
Yeah, we'll probably have to wait a little bit of time to get some initial reports on what has occurred if this did generate a tsunami. You know, only 6 miles deep and a magnitude 7.2, and we know the USGS downgraded this, and I'm actually going to take a look at the reporting stations and we'll get a general idea of what the reporting stations all brought in. It might just take me a second to find it.
That's a good idea. We have seen examples where it's been downgraded, even though everybody saw the original status, then later it's downgraded. And so we have an opportunity to actually prove that, hey, it was downgraded. Sometimes they admit it, a lot of times they're not. And yes, folks like Dutch Sense have been able to prove over and over and over again that they are being downgraded actively. And it makes sense. They don't want us freaking out.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any of the I'm not seeing any of the additional information. Go figure. Yeah, usually they have the other reporting stations. USGS is not carrying them right at this moment.
Does the 3D Earth guy, can't you choose a different pool of data? But weren't you telling me that they downgrade them too in the Europe?
Oh yeah, that's all fed. Yeah, all of the all of the seismic offices are downgrading. Yeah, I'm looking at only 2 reporting agencies right now, the Philippines and the USGS, both right now at magnitude 7.2. So this will change, though. This will definitely change
exactly
as the information comes in. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we caught this within probably minutes of occurring. So yeah, I think we may possibly see a lot more of this. I hope not, but there may be an increase in large earthquake activity.
And there are 8 active volcanoes in the Philippines, FYI.
Yeah. I mean, right now we have close to 40 active volcanoes
worldwide.
Yeah, fully in eruption mode. I counted this morning. It was, I think, 38 or 39. It has been up. We've been having about 29 to 30. And we've just seen this increase. Oh my Lord!
What an increase!
Oh boy! Right now, I'm looking at the European map. I'm going to have to share this with you guys because this is.
You looked at it. Okay, cool. Well, maybe it's not cool, but good. You're showing us some more data. Awesome.
Yeah, this is way more active than what I saw early this morning. This is the European EMSD. Yeah, these are earthquakes 4.8, 4.1, 4.9. I can't even get into this swarm in central Italy. That's where they had that devastating earthquake last year. These are swarms. 3.5. These are all occurring. These have all occurred. Like today.
Does it show any of oh yeah, you're already seeing some of Russia and then maybe some of Mongolia and China. I'm not sure. In India,
yeah, they don't do a lot of reporting.
Oh, conveniently. Okay.
Yeah, there's a 3.0 that just went off in Iceland. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the worldwide map because they all report differently. And
oh, that's the one. He's purple.
Yeah, 7.2. Yeah, that's a pretty big earthquake. That's very concerning. Very concerning. Only, like I said, 6 miles deep.
You're right on top of it. I think this is a good live way to kind of look at the data and watch how things change, like you alluded to earlier.
Yeah, I mean, we're right in the middle of talking about this occurring, and lo and behold, bingo. I mean, here we go. Now, I'm sure there's no testimonials because people do chime in and they do write a testimonial on what they've actually felt as far as the earthquake that just went off. So sorry, this internet is running a little slow. Blame it on the sun.
That's right.
Yeah, that's Now, see, they have their seismic device in a different location than the USGS, because the USGS was more so out here. This is where their seismic device.
Oh, sorry. What did you say? I interrupted.
This is where their seismic device is actually picking it up. This would be their epicenter for the European agency right here.
So thank you for bringing that up. So it was the MSC CSEM.org. That's exact. I couldn't remember the agency. Well, I was going to mention something. You had mentioned that we're only using the tools that we have available to us.
That's it, man. That's all we got.
So again, I really felt strongly about the whole physics concept, that it's all about observation, right, Doctor?
Yes, that's right, Chris.
What was the other part that you, as well as Scott, had said? I just wanted to reemphasize that again about the part of physics that it's based on observation.
And you make logical deductions.
So you're making logical deductions based upon your observations.
That's correct. That's exactly what it's all about.
Sorry if I'm repeating something that we've already covered, but I guess for someone like
that's fine.
It makes sense because I'm an investigator, I guess, or I guess that's what I like to do. I investigate, and it seems that physics and investigation type of work is hand in hand with one another. And again, well, gosh, you only can do what you can with the friggin' tools that we're allowed to have or use. And that goes into the argument of, you know, the public is 40 years behind the military. We're only given what they want us to have, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, some of the public and worldwide available tools, even though it's so awesome that we have the internet, are limited. And then the devices themselves, you know, we don't know anything about how it was deployed. We don't know any specs on it. We don't know how long it's been around. We don't know how accurate they are, etc. So just things to be considerate, or at least to consider in our investigation, or etc. So I just liked how you both had worded that, because why that's important is because of your white papers. I guess a lot of folks have call them white papers. I think that they're just your thoughts, right? But you do that extremely professionally, because that's how you work. You're professional. And so we've accumulated a certain amount of data from your thoughts that are completely relevant to exactly what's happening right now, because it's based upon your observations. And you aren't just sitting on your butt for 5 or 10 minutes putting out this material or studying. You're like for days, sometimes weeks, before you actually give us a presentation. So you do a ton of work, and it's appreciated. With Scott, you got a lot of folks kind of, I want to address something too real quick. I wouldn't have brought Scott in to the sacred triangle of power unless I didn't trust this guy and knew that he could take us to the next level, because people weren't friggin' paying attention to me. So I am grateful for Scott. And he in no way, shape, or form directs me, nor does the physicist. I could drop both of them today and make videos on how to make flying cheese sandwiches. But I hate to do that, because I really feel strongly that each of us have a little part of the puzzle that we are collectively supposed to work together to bring something important into light that needs to be at this time. So with that, go ahead and continue, both of y'all.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you, Chris, for saying that. You know, and yeah, back to the physics, as you mentioned, I think it's important that what I do is I am trying to understand what's going on. And I'm using my training as a physicist, observations, and make deductions, and use what I know about the theories, the known theories, the theories I know about, to put everything together in order to understand what is going on. I'm using everything I have available to me, and I'm doing the best I can. It doesn't mean I know everything. It just means that I keep on trying to understand. I believe that my training as a physicist, that's what it has put inside me, the desire to understand and the training to think my way through it. When I write, I first try to understand what's going on. Before I even start writing, I try to, what is going on here? And that's what takes the longest. I sometimes pace the floor and I think and I think and I think about the interactions and what the observations are telling me before I start writing my articles. So I think that's very important. I thank you for what you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you do a fantastic job. And I'm looking at another, this is the seismology office in Spain that has detection devices. They're registering this earthquake at a 6.7. But again, this is very, very early to get the information. But yeah, they have a pretty nice website. I'll have to bookmark this site. But as you can see over here in the upper left-hand corner, coming out of Madrid, Spain, they've detected a 6.7 magnitude as far as that earthquake goes. Very surprised that the USGS is reporting it at a 7.2. European agency is reporting it as a 7.2, and other seismology offices are detecting this at a 7.2. It may be downgraded. It may not.
Yes.
But,
I bet you they do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's still, even as a 6.7, it's a very strong earthquake.
Oh, there's no doubt. And that close to land, and like I said, that geographical area located around that horseshoe-shaped inlet or port or whatever that might be, I'm sure, that's probably going to create some type of a situation. Hopefully it does not. But I think that we're probably going to start seeing more and more seismic activity and volcanic activity. And I'm not making a prediction, call it a forecast, but based on those jet streams and the heating up of our atmosphere, there's a very, very high possibility that we'll probably see some wild weather. We will definitely see the continuation of climate chaos. And not only do we have all of this going on, we have these nutbags out there that want to wage war with each other.
That's right.
I mean, why can't we just live in peace? I know that's like an impossibility with the human race, but I don't know. Things are definitely getting very, very interesting. And I'll be honest with everybody, ladies and gentlemen, some way, somehow, any way you can, keep in touch with your media sources, whether it be my channel or another alternative news media channel on YouTube, or if you are, a CNN fan or CBS or ABC or Fox or whatever news station you listen to in whatever part of the world that you're in, I think it's going to be a wise thing to say, keep some type of connection to information around the world. Now, there's some pretty good sources on YouTube that get information out sometimes faster than mainstream media, and at least you can trust them and their reporting. I don't know, mainstream media here in the United States, I don't even watch it. It's like a comedy show, for God's sakes. But anyways, Chris, were you going to say something? I'm sorry, I interrupted there. Did we lose Chris?
No, you didn't lose me. Just make sure you check your cell phone.
So I guess things are going to get really, really interesting. over the next couple of days. You know, Doctor, I don't even know where we were in your report, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it back up here.
Okay.
I kind of disrupted everybody, and I was talking about Figure 7, and we were going back over.
Yeah, that's fine. We can start with where we were. I think it was Figure 3. And I think Chris brought up an interesting point about the camera. So I will have something to say about that. I have actually written a report about that previously, and how we can see that it's not the camera. What we have to do, yeah, up a little bit more, Scott. Go up to Figure 4.
There you
Figure
go.
5. Yeah, that one. But what we see there in the 2017 image, you can see it's very dark, okay? We can see that. But there are still regions where it's very bright. For example, in the first image there, right in the middle of the sun, there's a sunspot. And in the center of the sunspot, you see a very bright region. Usually do, and I did this in the report before, is I compare, I drew a little rectangle around that very bright region, and I compare it with another bright region in the image below, which is from 2011. So even though it's overall it's much brighter, what we usually notice is a small spot in a very bright region is about the same color as a small spot in a very bright region image. Okay, and you can do the same thing with the corona. So in the fourth image in the top row, you see on the left-hand side there's a bright spot on the corona. If you compare just the spot where it's the brightest with a bright area in the corona in the image below, it's the same color. It's that whitish pink. So from that, you can see that it's not the camera. The camera is still saying bright pink is still bright pink. I mean, so it's not the camera. It's the fact that the sun is not emitting the same intensity of light. So the intensity is gone. Yes, thanks.
I'm not trying to interrupt you, but when you say the word intensity, that's the best description that I could give myself as well. And I think it's really important that you focus on that too, because looking at Figure 4 from the top left to the top or the bottom right, you can clearly see what you were kind of explaining there. There's a completely different darkness and hue. And even let's say those were all coronal holes. If you, like you were saying, if you compare maybe on the top left image on the, I would say the 2 o'clock position, you know, some of the corona and some of that pink there, if you compare that with the bottom right image, it's not as bright, period, the end of story, have a good day.
Yeah.
So, and you were saying that that comparison is what you were using to help you identify or isolate the camera issue. Is there any other way we could, I mean, other than calling NASA? And I know we can call NASA. I know we can Skype these guys and they'll actually get back to you. So I don't know if that's something we should look at.
From what I have seen, because on both images in the 2011, 2017, the brightest part of the image is the same shade. It's bright, it's almost white, okay? So because the brightest part is the same shade, that hasn't changed. It's not, the camera is still, it's not even the camera. This is computer generated color. So what the computer does is it assigns a certain color to a certain intensity of light. So when that intensity is there, it assigns that color. So so it's not even the camera that could have changed in this case. The way it's the computer generated color is assigned, and
we won't know that. Right? How would we know that? Would they admit to doing that?
Now, what we would see is, well, we only get the idea by examining the images. So again, you would look at the brightest spot in the top image. And if you see that the brightest spots are a shade of pink lower than the brightest spots, then you could say, okay, there is a degradation perhaps in either the detectors or the way the colors are assigned. But because the brightest shade is the same in both images, then I would say that the detector is still the same and the assigning of the colors is still the same.
Okay. So what was helpful for me to understand was that you basically looked at the top left image, and for the brightest part on that entire image, you compare it to the bottom right, and you can tell that there are brighter portions on that far exceed the one on the top left, and that was another kind of helpful determining factor that not only was the camera, but that you were able to, by observation, see that it was getting darkened.
Yeah, I mean, well, there are two things here. Okay.
Yes.
First of all, it's not the detector, because if you look at the left image which you spoke about, overall the image is darker.
Oh, are you there?
Yeah, we're losing. We lost her for a split second.
Oh, okay.
She'll pop back in there,
okay,
but yeah, we're probably gonna start having some internet issues.
Okay.
Are you there? Okay. Well, I'll tell you
what.
I'm
here.
I'll tell you what. Here's the bottom line, and I'm just gonna put it to everybody real quick. 1, 2, 3. This is gonna be in Scott's layman's terms. Okay, listen.
Okay.
Whenever you're looking at these photographs from the SDO, and your only claim and your only comment is, oh, there's something wrong with the camera. Listen, just get out of here with that. Okay? Just get out of here with that, because we have listened constantly to the same comments that absolutely mean nothing. And if there is anybody out there that feels that they can do a better job at analyzing and creating these observations and reports, well, have at it. But just to use the very simple-minded excuse, there's something wrong with the camera, well, I'll just lay it out there. You sound stupid. You sound stupid. Because I've been looking at these images for a long time, years. And I myself have noticed this degradation of this object that we call the sun. And the highly sophisticated instruments that are up there in space on these craft, the SDO, SETI, stereo, all of these instruments are pretty sophisticated. And they built them to last. They built them not to have problems in space, which is a very violent place. Temperatures, particles, objects, debris, whatever. Bottom line is, what you're looking at is exactly what you're looking at. You're looking at the sun literally going dark over a period of time. There's no other way around it, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a better answer, we'd love to hear it. I know me and Chris would, and I'm sure the doctor would love to hear, other than, it must be the camera. It must be the camera.
Thank you.
I'm tired of hearing it. You know, I'm really tired of hearing it. But anyways.
Okay. We can move forward. I agree. Thank you for clarifying that, seriously, because you were able to bring a little bit of light to what I was trying to say too, and I was a little bit fumbling, just being too over-explanatory. So
no. I mean, it wasn't. It wasn't you. I'm just tired of individuals with the same old comment. You know, they bring no substance to anything. You know, they're sitting in their fat lazy boy chair, shoving a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in their mouth and potato chips crumbling in their seat, and that's all they got. It's the camera. It's the camera. No, it's the peanut butter and jelly sandwich you're shoving in your fat mouth. That's all that you can spit out at the moment. And here, you know, we have a lady who has dedicated half of her life to get to the point where she's at with her education, her research, and her observations. And that's all that you have to say? It's the camera. Wipe the peanut butter off your mouth. Let's move on.
Thanks.
But anyways, there is absolutely no doubt. You know, I actually tried to stay away from my own commentary of the sun going dark, because that does scare a lot of people whenever you say that. And it was very hard for me to back up what I was saying just based on showing some pictures like we're seeing right here, comparing the left to the right. But now, through your studies, your research, your observations, and your knowledge, you're now bringing to light, once again, no pun intended, but you are bringing to light what is actually happening. And just because everybody walks outside and they see daylight, they see a sun in the sky, they feel the warmth on their skin, doesn't mean there isn't something going on. And unless you are privy to this information, then you don't have a clue. Because you're used to just walking outside, seeing the sunlight, and not thinking anything of it. And none of us are solar experts, but based on these observations since 2011, and that's just a few short years ago, we can already see what is occurring. And there really aren't any other scientific outlets out there to tell us what's happening. And the doctor's been making some very, very critical observations. And I mean, she's definitely helping me out with my understanding of what is happening. So, ladies and gentlemen, suck all of this up, because, you know, whenever it's all said and done, again, I'm going to repeat myself. For the people out there that don't know what's happening, it's going to be a very horrible situation. But at least you will know, and you'll have a clue on what is happening, because then you may be able to help other people that may be in distress. And again, knowledge is power. You will know what's happening, so therefore you may just know what to do. And that's kind of the basis behind my whole channel, and I'm sure Chris would agree, is that we want to warn you, we want to try and educate you and ourselves at the same time. None of us are rocket scientists. Again, no pun intended. You know, but at least we've put together some pretty good minds, and we're trying to get this information out there so people do understand it. And the bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, as the doctor has stated, based on her observations and her education and her background, there is definitely another object that is draining the sun, that is interacting with the sun. And I believe we've only seen the beginning of what's about to occur. I wish I had a definite 100% timeline for all of you, but I don't. But all we can do is keep plugging away day after day, and trying to grab this information and put it together.
Yeah, timelines are probably a bad thing to ever really mention or stick to. I guess general preparedness, like you were mentioning earlier. And I'll just say a quick preparedness thing that I thought was really helpful for me. When there's no power, you ain't gonna go cook your food. We know you ain't gonna microwave it. So if you have food that's dried, meats, fruits, vegetables, nuts, boom, you are good to go. I always keep some in my car. I have a big bag of trail mix and water just in case I need some or the kids are hungry, whatever. But I've found that it's actually probably the most choice and easiest of all emergency food. You don't have to go nuts, but you should just have something. Anyway, so the preparedness thing, I think, is a just general, like, good common sense thing. And like in Boy Scouts, they say be prepared, you know, so I think that's a good thing too. Anyway,
yeah,
so go ahead.
I mean, I agree. And, you know, I get criticized by some people for being an affiliate of Food for Liberty. But I mean, the bottom line is, you know, I was contacted by Food for Liberty because they're a fantastic company.
They contacted you?
Oh yes, they absolutely contacted me, and actually one of the owners within the company had contacted me, and we had a very long conversation, fantastic conversation. Wow. And I was looking for something like that to give the information to my subscribers, because I mean, in all actuality, I'm not what you call one of them hardcore preppers, but I know how to take care of myself in emergency situations. I've never been faced with the type of situation that we're looking at, but I think I can survive. But for the majority of people out there, you know, who have families, you have kids. Look, kids are going to want food, man. They're going to want something to eat. They're going to want something to drink. They're not going to settle for, you know, 2, 3, 4 days of beef jerky and nuts, even though I could survive on it. And that's part of my diet now. You know what I mean? But Food for Liberty is fantastic because all of their products are fantastic. They're great. And they have a 25-year shelf life. Oh,
it's prepared. Okay, so I know a competitor. Okay, so 25 friggin' years.
Full meals, buddy. Huge. Full meals.
That's huge. So anybody that's done any camping, scouting, hiking, 25 years is the bomb. I just had to say something. So there's another big channel, William Mount. I'm pretty sure he works with the same company. So
he's actually done some videos preparing the food from Food for Liberty. And they got absolutely fantastic food. Now people are saying, "Oh, yeah, it's too expensive. It's too expensive." Well, no one's telling you to, you know, purchase a $3,000 order. But as I've done, as time has gone on, I've prepared myself a large bin. You can buy them at, you know, any local department store, you know, Walmart, whatever. As long as it would fit in the trunk of your car, you're good to go. That's my bug out bin. You know, I have everything I need in there. Change of clothes, you know, some additional items, a small medical kit. And the Food for Liberty food, it's, you know, comes in the packets and different, you know, there's different things there. But again, you don't have to store it anywhere. You know what I mean? You could put that in the bug out bin and boom, man, something happens. You got to get in your car. You're gone. You put that bin in your trunk and boom, you're out of there.
I'm glad that you mentioned it because I was always curious, and I'm like, well, I just will ask you right now while we're live because I love the emergency preparedness kind of stuff. Like I'm not a hardcore prepper either, but I'm pretty sure that I could take care of me and my kids for at least a month.
Yeah.
I'm at now. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I actually, you know, I mean, look, I'm Italian. I like to cook. So that's why I was saying, you know, I couldn't see myself living on fruits, nuts, berries, you know, grass, tree bark,
bird food.
Yeah, trying to catch a wild rabbit and, you know, eat it raw.
Yeah, bunny food. Yeah.
But I went out and I bought myself a small Coleman gas propane stove. You know, like you said, the small camping ones.
Yeah.
You know, it's no longer than a microwave. Folds up. You know, you have a small canister of propane, and in that bug out bag bin that I have one pot and two small Teflon pans. So, you know, I could heat and prepare the food if necessary under any type of emergency situation where we don't have power. So I bought 6 additional small propane tanks.
Good.
And they're small. They're no bigger than about 12 to 14 inches long, no rounder than a can of soda pop.
They are tiny.
Yeah,
I got something similar from Walmart.
Yeah,
that was benzene or whatever the other. I forget what it's called. I think butane. Excuse me. I don't think it was benzene. Hello. But yeah, it was a butane. Not a Coleman, but it was a Walmart brand or whatever for $25, and then they sell you like a little 12-pack of the little canisters, and they're just can size, Red Bull size. And you don't really need anything. That only cost me like $25 to $35 for both. So and Coleman, probably didn't cost you more than $50.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I picked up everything in one shot right at Walmart.
There you go.
The small stove, it fits in the bottom of the bin. I have everything packed on top of it. And ladies and gentlemen, something else too. You know, the smallest item that you may not even think about is a lighter, a cigarette lighter. And definitely one of those longer extension lighters that you use to light a grill, or one of them candle lighters. One of those, they're very, very cheap. Throw that in there because, I mean, let's face it. We live in modern times. There aren't too many of us that can go out there and rub 2 damn sticks together and create a caveman fire. So having a source of fire is definitely smart. Throwing in some batteries, a flashlight, things of that nature. Something that's very important is if you're on medications that if you didn't have them would be life-threatening. I keep mentioning this, getting closer and closer to what seems to be some nasty events, possibly.
Good job.
Go to your doctor and say, listen, doc, I'm going on a vacation for 2-3 months. Any chance of me getting my prescription filled for 90 days? Because
there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there's nothing illegal with that in any way, shape, or form, because some doctors will work with the pharmacist, absolutely do give you 3 months worth rather than just 30 days, 180 days worth, whatever. Yes, that's a really dang good point. Because wasn't it Hurricane Katrina that people were wigging out when they didn't have their meds and it was bad?
Yes, absolutely. That happens all the time when there's a catastrophe like that. And here's the other issue, ladies and gentlemen. If you can't get food, you can't get water, you can't get medical attention or your medications, guess where you're gonna end up? In the FEMA camp. And when you go through the doors and the gates of any one of those FEMA camps in a state of emergency, you belong to them. That's all I have to say. You belong to them. You just walked right into a concentration camp, and trust me, you won't be leaving. You will not be leaving, and they will chip you. They will chip you walking in the door. Mark my words. If you don't believe me, look up the information, and I'm sure that anybody that is subscribed to my channel or Chris's channel, I think you already know about the FEMA camps. They're popping up everywhere, and they're fully staffed and ready to rock and roll. But I'm not going to be singing their song. That's a fact. And also have a means to protect yourself. Whatever you want to take from that, take it. But you better have a means of protecting yourself. That much is a fact. So, doctor.
Is she still
yes.
Doctor.
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Just listening.
Yep.
Now that we've gone over our prepping information that just came nowhere. I was looking at once again at the observations that you have set up in front of us, and just looking at these, I can clearly see some definitely darkening of the sun, especially the first upper left.
Yeah, the first one is the X-ray image. It's the 9.4 nanometer, so that's X-ray. So you can see in X-rays how much darker the sun is right now in 2017 than it was in 2011. And then the next one is the 13.1, so that's ultraviolet, the first ultraviolet wavelength. It's not as dramatic, but you can clearly see that the sun is definitely darker in 2017, that are less active regions on it as well. And then in the next one, it's similar. It's the 17.1. Again, there is not much difference in the color, but there is a difference. And you can see the bright spots, that there are much less bright spots. And then the next one is the 19.3 nanometer. In that one, we can usually see if there is a large corona to see. And you can definitely see how small the corona is in 2017 in comparison to the corona in 2011. And also the sun is much brighter in 2011. And the coronal holes are actually very obvious in the 2017, the top image.
Yeah, I can see the difference. I can see the difference
yes.
pretty good here on my computer screen. I'm sure all of the viewers can definitely see that. There's just no doubt about it.
Yes.
I just think that right now, as we were talking about the preparation, you know, all of the evidence that is being uncovered each and every day is definitely pointing at a solar event of some kind, and whatever occurs after that, are we going to see a passing of Planet X? Is it actually going to stick around inside of our inner solar system and continue to degrade the sun? You know, these are some very, very vital questions. Are we going to see the appearance of the infamous planet Nibiru, you know, dating back to all of the writings and research of Zacharias Sitchin? We also have a lot of credible information from the very beginning from Dr. Robert Harrington, who gave his life for this information. And also Carlos Ferrada, who has put in his research on what we're experiencing right now. Also dating back all the way to the Hopi Indians, the Red Kachina, the Red Dragon. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been foretold throughout all of history. Do you think these people in these ancient times were just making this up? No. They noted it down. They documented it. They documented it. The Chinese documented it over 5,000 years ago. It's all over the Bible. For those of you that are very religious and that research the Bible, then you should know a lot of this. And it just seems
days of darkness. There are 3 days of darkness in the Bible, and I know people don't like me talking about the Book of Mormon, but I'm going to mention it anyway. There are 3 days of darkness in the Book of Mormon. So at the time frame, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'll just make this point really quickly since you are on this train or line of thinking right now and sharing with your audience. In ancient Egypt, it was one of the 10 plagues. So what was that? We're just going to guess between 3 to 4,000 BC, where the event that happened in the Book of Mormon appears to have taken place at about 33 to 34 AD. I find it interesting, the time, because it is often balked at the Zacharias Sitchin 3,600-year orbit by many different folks. I really don't want to get into it, but They're two totally different time frames. What in the crap makes the sun go dark for 3 days? Hello. So, and just as a side, we'll just put that aside. What the heck is this grand solar minimum? Maybe there's something to it, dude. Right? You know what I'm saying? Because 1755, well, it's been at least a couple hundred years since that happened. And like I said, we didn't have the equipment that we do now. We're going to see something significant in our lifetime, and that's all there is to it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. There's no doubt about it. And, you know, I mean, I've researched Zecharia Sitchin. I've read all of the material. And before a lot of this information was available, and before coming across the doctor and all of her observations and information, and the more and more that I keep digging and understanding, you know, ladies and gentlemen, yes, I have researched the planet Nibiru intensively for years. But I'll be honest with you, I think that what we are witnessing and experiencing may possibly be something different, or it all may be related. See, this is the issue. This is the problem. This is why we poke and prod and rip and tear and gouge and try to get this information, because we just cannot accept what one little old man wrote in a book, Zecharia Sitchin. Love the little guy, respect him. But translating Sumerian tablets, that just seems very hugely difficult. You know, I mean, honestly, some of us have problems with our own language in our own countries, but understanding what's happening right now, looking at biblical prophecy, has been something I've been looking into each and every day. The sign of the times is actually here. It is almost like a photocopy, a carbon copy of what's in the Bible. And I can't help to bring myself to say that. So putting together biblical prophecy alongside of science is the only thing that we have. That's it. This is what we have. Because you know damn well that you cannot turn to your government at this time and ask for this critical information and knowledge. You know why? Because they're too busy wanting to blow each other up, and us along with them. And that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. And I hope and I pray every day that we do not go through this. I just made the comment a little while ago in the comment section in the live chat. Man, I had all kind of plans. You know, I had plans for my life that did not involve this. I wanted to enjoy my retirement, man. I wanted to fish. I wanted to buy a convertible Mustang. I wanted to travel again. Well, that's all been placed to the side, because for the last several years, and the last year intensely dealing with the YouTube channels and everything else that goes along with this, the threats, the exposure, whatever you want to call it, it's been pretty intense. But I'm not going anywhere. The doctor's not going anywhere. Chris is not going anywhere. We're going to continue. We're going to continue to the minute that we don't have anything left. Power, breath, heartbeat, whatever. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there are people out there that are trying to silence everything that we bring forth. You may not agree with all of it, but unless you are putting in 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, continuously without sleep, trying to gather this information to bring it to you every single day. We know that you all have lives. I've actually put mine on hold. I'm hoping all of this goes away like dust in the wind. But I don't think it is. The sign of the times is there. We are seeing all of the signs, every one of them. And there are people out there that are programmed to make you believe differently. And I'm sure you're all very intelligent individuals. And I think that you could all see it for yourself. I hope you do. I really, really do hope that you see what's happening. Because if you don't, you're going to be in big trouble. You're going to be in really big trouble. I think we're already in big trouble as it is. But anyways, Doctor and Chris, any last thoughts?
Well, just thank you again, Scott. It's been an interesting conversation about what's going on in our world. And yeah, thank you.
Well, no, we all owe you the thanks, because once again, I'll say this again, without your beautiful mind, your intelligence, and what you've brought to our group is, it's like a godsend. It's like a ray of light and like an angel from heaven, because without this information and without your knowledge and without your help, we would still be plugging away in the dark, searching for more and more answers. So you've definitely brought a crystal clear light into what we're investigating and what we're researching. Chris, I know you definitely have to agree, but any last words from you, sir?
Oh, I totally agree. No last words for me. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, my pleasure. And ladies and gentlemen, over the course of, I don't know, the next couple of days, it's hard to say what is exactly going to happen. This threat of war, this really scares me, because I was told a year ago that this would occur. This is what the plans were. And it's happening. They're dropping bombs in the Middle East. The threat of nuclear war. The next thing that we'll be looking for, mark my words, is the economical collapse. And when you see this economic collapse, currencies collapsing, banks folding, even though you may be seeing some of this now minutely, but when you see it on a larger global scale, run for the hills. Run for the hills. Because that will definitely be the catalyst that will tip the apple cart straight over. We're seeing some of it now. So, one last word from me as far as the Food for Liberty. If any of you are interested, there is a link for Food for Liberty in the description box under this video and under all of my videos. You can click on it and you can go directly to their website, and you can shop in your own privacy, and you can take a look at the different items that they have. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be doing a lot more of our broadcasting, and some of it is going to be on the X Factor radio show that I've put together a few weeks ago, simply because there are going to be a lot of things coming up that they're just not going to be okay for YouTube. And I don't feel like getting censored. I do not want to be quiet about some of the things that are going to be coming up. I want people to hear us. So once again, in the description box, under this video or any of my videos, there is a direct link for Blog Talk Radio. X Factor Radio is my show. You click on that link and it will take you directly to my station page. There's a little pink icon button that says follow, just like YouTube. Click on that follow button, set up your notifications, and you could listen to the radio broadcasts anytime you want. You can also cast them to your television if you want. You can listen to them in your car, through your cell phone, however you want to listen to it. But we're going to be bringing out some information on the radio station that we just cannot bring out on YouTube. They've just gotten entirely too strict, and I think that's being done for a reason also. So after this video, after this live hangout and live stream, take a few minutes, click on the X Factor Radio URL, the link, go to the homepage, follow, set up notifications. I just uploaded some episodes today that will carry out through noon tomorrow. Very, very good information. You definitely should check it out. Everyone, please be safe. Keep your eyes and your ears open. And if you hear or see anything that you think we should know about, drop me an email at nibiruPlanetX2016@gmail.com. Once again, that information is in the description box under the video. And all of you, hey man, we love all of you like brothers and sisters. Make sure you take care of yourself and be safe. And you'll be hearing from all of us again very, very soon. So stay tuned. This is Scott from Planet X News. Thank you for watching.